Welcome to the cabin. Today we'll be painting a skull sword from the Drune warband of the Sláine miniatures game from Warlord Games. If you want to see more videos like this, please check out my channel, and if you want to support me, please consider subscribing. With that said, let's get to it. A couple of months ago, Warlord Games released a new game in their series based on 2000 AD comic properties. This time they chose Sláine, or Sláine, depending on how you pronounce it. I haven't bought any other products from Warlord Games, but I knew this one was for me, so I bought the entire first wave of minis. I really like the comics, created by Pat Mills and Angela Kincaid, that center around this mythical Celtic warrior fighting for the earth goddess Danu. I have read all of the comics, and recently also the book Kiss My Axe by Pat Mills, chronicling the behind-the-scenes story of how the comics were written. In a poll I made here on the channel, you guys decided that I should start with the evil Skull Swords of the Drune faction, and that's exactly what we are painting today. These guys wear hair masks and breathe through little straws due to the smell of their masters, the Drune Lords. 3 Skull Swords miniatures come in the starter box. Thanks Doria and Alicia. And another 9 come in their faction box. Thanks Rudica and Ronnie S. The miniatures are made of something they call Warlord resin. Like I said, these are my first Warlord Games miniatures, but from the looks of it, I think they're made from Cyocast, or at least from a similar material. This resin is very bendable and good at retaining details from the original sculpt. Most of the miniatures are cast as single pieces, with only one of the skull swords coming with a separate crossbow. The only downside I can see with the material is that the mold lines are a little hard to scrape off and filing does not work well on them. I started by removing any residue from resin gates with clippers and a hobby knife. I also used the knife to remove any visible mold lines and cut down some of the hard edges on the base tabs. To remove any mold release agent residue, I washed the minis with some detergent and hot water. Maybe you don't have to do this with this type of resin, but I always do when working with resin or metals just to be safe. You can also use an ultrasonic cleaner to save time. Assembly was a walk in the park, as all I had to do was glue the tabs to the plastic bases with super glue. For the basing, I added some slate stones and tiny rocks, again with super glue. Lastly, using PVA glue, I covered the rest of the bases with some hobby sand. I undercoated the skull swords in Zandri dust, and then I gave them a zenithal highlight with Liquitex titanium white using my airbrush. With all the prep work done, I decided to start with painting the skin, giving it a base coat of a 50-50 mix of Bugman's Glow and Cadian Flesh Tone. After this, I gave the skin a wash of Reichsland Flesh Shade. To bring back the original color, I layered on the same base mix again. For the next layer, I used Cadian Flesh Tone on its own. Next up, I used Kislev Flesh to add a highlight. Finally, I added a filter of Guilliman flesh diluted with a huge amount of contrast medium. I decided to paint half of the miniatures with brown hair. For these, I started with a Doombull brown base coat. After this, I gave the hair a wash of Agrax Earthshade. Next up, I layered Doombull brown once again. Then I added tusk or fur on most of the strands of hair. Finally, I selected a few of the strands and highlighted them with scrag brown to add some variation. The other half of the miniatures were given blonde hair, starting with a base coat of Zandri dust. I also used this on skirts, shield straps, and feet wrappings. I used Ushakti bone to add the first layer. After this, I washed all of these areas with Seraphim Sepia. Next up, I reapplied some Ushakti bone on most strands. The wooden parts were painted with Gorthor brown as a base coat. I also painted the metal studs on the shields, as well as the helmets and weapons, with lead belcher. Next up, I washed all the wooden and metallic parts with Agrax Earthshade. The wooden parts were then highlighted with Steel Legion Drab, and finally, I did a selective highlight with XV88. To finish the rest of the metallic parts, I used Runefang Steel to edge highlight them. Some of the miniatures feature wolf pelts, and I base coated these in Storm Vermin fur. These areas were then given a wash of Nuln oil. I then reapplied Storm Vermin fur as the first layer. Next up, I applied Rakarth flesh on some selected parts. Finally, I used Wraithbone to highlight these brighter parts. Many of the miniatures have loincloths, and I started with a base coat of Screamer Pink for these. I then gave them a wash of Caribou Crimson, next up I reapplied Screamer Pink to add back some definition. After that, I used a 50-50 mix of Screamer Pink and Pink Horror for the next layer. Finally, I highlighted them with pure Pink Horror. I decided to paint the shields and bracelets with a base coat of Balthasar Gold. These were then dry brushed with Sycorax Bronze. It looks a bit flat as of now, but we'll come back to these areas in a later stage. The horns, breathing straws, and wolf claws were base coated with Steel Legion Drab. I then used Agrax Earthshade to pick out the holes in the straws. Next up, I layered on some Zandri dust. This was followed by Ushakti bone, leaving some of the previous layers showing. Finally, I layered on Wraithbone on the very edges and horn tips. The arrow feathers on the crossbow wielders were base coated with Corn Red. Next up, I highlighted them with Wazdaka Red. Finally, the very edges were painted with Wild Rider Red. As the miniatures are cast in single pieces, some of them have some filler areas that are supposed to be empty spaces but have to be solid for the miniature to be able to be cast. I painted these negative spaces with Abaddon Black. I used Space Wolf's Grey for the stones on the bases. To make them pop a bit more, I dry brushed them with Grey Sear. The sand was painted with Wildwood. And again, to make it pop a bit, I dry brushed them, this time with Rakarth Flesh. The rims were then painted with Steel Legion Drab. Before finishing the bases and adding some effects to certain areas, I varnished all the models with a 50-50 mix of satin and matte varnish. I added some moss on the bases, using Dirty Down Moss. When dry, you can use a damp brush to smooth out transitions where necessary. The bronze details were weathered using Dirty Down Verdigris. Using a damp foam swab, I removed some of the verdigris from the raised areas. I also applied extra water to bring out the effect even more. For the base, I wanted the Skull Swords to walk through an overgrown Irish meadow, so I added some 6mm static grass, using an electric applicator and a special glue. This helps the strands to stand upright when you glue them on, giving a better look when dry. For some variation, I used shrub tufts with some super glue on certain parts. Finally, I took some pieces of tall shrubbery and glued them to the bases using PVA glue. With that, my Skull Swords were complete. I had tons of fun painting these miniatures, and I'm looking forward to working with more of this range. For the showcase shots, I tried using a smoke machine that my wonderful girlfriend gave me as a birthday present. Shout out to Costronica by Wayne's Workshop, who she bought it from. Link is in the description down below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified about future content. I'll see you next time. Good luck with your miniatures.